Hey everyone, welcome to a new edition of the Marvin Byrd Show, and I'm your host, Marvin Byrd, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Today we're going to talk about leadership principles from the movie The Polar Express. Leadership principles from the Polar Express. I was just recently watching this movie with my 6-year-old twins, and it's amazing to see that maturation process as they get older, because when they were 5, they watched it and they maybe watched a quarter of the movie, but they weren't really into it. And this year was definitely different. It was different because they watched the whole thing. And I'll tell you, for my son, it made him emotional. It touched his heart. And it reminded me of when I was in the classroom, because I loved when I shared movies with my students, and it touched them. It connected with them. One movie in particular that I showed one year was the Joy Luck Club. I was I was covering World War II, and I showed the Joy Luck Club, and I committed. I was going to show the whole movie, which I did over a few days. I showed the Joy Luck Club, and at the end of the movie, I remember I had a student, and she was uncontrollably emotional. She cried so much that I had to hold her from passing, and I had to give her some time to kind of get it out of her system, to wash her face and everything. But she connected with that movie, and that was just so special. And my son, he wasn't quite there, overly emotional, but like he felt it. He believes. And you know that moment was just so special. But I was thinking, what came to my mind later was that, wait a second, there's some key takeaways there. There's some leadership principles in that movie. And so I jotted some things down. I jotted 3 takeaways in terms of leadership, because here we believe that teachers are leaders. So I jotted 3 things down, and I want to share these things with you. So let's get into it. But first, before we get into it, let me say that birdlinks.com, birdlinks.com. Byrdlinks. That's the place that I want to ask you to go and make it a routine, because that's where you can go to get the top education news of the day. Right now, on the page featured is the story of a man who used to be in a gang, and now he is Missouri's Teacher of the Year. And he has got a lot to say. So check out Bird Links for that story and more. So many different stories on there regarding education. And so I encourage you to check that out. Make that part of your routine. Now, let's get into these takeaways, these leadership principles from the Polar Express. Number 1, same train, different goals. So let's get into these leadership principles from the movie The Polar Express. Number 1, same train, different goals. Same train, different goals. Remember, all these kids, they had one destination, right? You're going to the North Pole. But that journey would not have been complete had they not hit the different goals that they had. Like, one had to learn and be humble enough to learn. And the other one needed to realize the leader within. And then the other one, they had to believe. So it is with your students. They're in the same classroom. Mastery, that's the final destination. But in order to get there, in order to make that final destination complete, there's got to be different goals and different points of emphasis with each student. And so you can't, there is no one size fits all. If you try, that's why all of those approaches have failed when it comes to education, because one size does not fit all. Again, one had to learn, one had to lead, one had to believe. And any other emphasis with those kids, and the journey would not have been complete. It would have been a failure. Would have been a failure. And that's the same. That's the same with your students. It's the same with your students, because there's, some students, many students, they're in need of skills when they enter your classroom. There's different skills that they need to hit. It could be organization, could be communication. It could be a number of different skills that they are going to need in order to help them get to the next level. And also, as another thing that we're learning here now that we're in this pandemic, is that, students need different kinds of supports, and that support, it looks different from one student to the next. We're talking about leadership. Leadership means that you find what works for that student, and the point of emphasis that that student needs. And it's different from one student to the next. They're on the same train, different goals. One had to learn, one had to lead, one had to eventually believe. And then here's the biggest thing, I think, is also there are students who, they need to change the way they think. They need to change the way they think. For some students, a new way of thinking is what's going to help make that journey complete. It's what's going to help them to get the most out of that journey. For example, I had a number of students who came to my class who just weren't interested in social studies, which is fine. That's fine. And so their thinking was, how is this going to help me in the real world, in the career of my choosing? I'm never going to use this. That was the way that they thought. They came into my room with that thinking. And so my job as a leader was to try to help them. Okay, your ticket is, you got to think differently. And I got to do the best that I can to help you get the most out of this journey so that it's complete. So what I told them was, well, perhaps I leaned into their argument. Perhaps you will not use this information in the career of your choosing, but you may use the ways, the methods that we acquire the knowledge. Perhaps you'll need that in the career of your choosing. That's called problem solving. That's called reading comprehension. And those kinds of things. Perhaps you'll need those things in order to be successful in the career of your choosing. Also, communication, written and spoken communication, perhaps those things you will need in the career of your choosing. So it's really challenging to do, and it takes a lot of consistency on your part as a leader. But yeah, definitely a change in thinking is something that a lot of your students are going to need when they enter your classroom. And so they're depending on you for that. I want to share with you a quote from Oprah Winfrey. She said this. She said, "We can't become what we need to be by remaining what we are. We can't become what we need to be by remaining what we are." And that was the essence of that journey on the Polar Express. Yeah, we're going to get to the North Pole. Yes. But on your ticket, there's a message here. There's something that you need. And I'm going to put it on this ticket to really help you get the most of this journey. So this journey is fully successful. Same train, different goals. Same train, different goals. All right, number 2. And before we get to number 2, I want to share something with you. I want to ask of you this, marvinbyrd.com, marvinbyrd.com. If you go to marvinbyrd.com, at the top, at the menu, on the menu bar, you'll see a tab that says support the message. If you click that, that'll take you to an Amazon link. And let me tell you this, whenever you use that link to Amazon, you'll be able to purchase anything you want on Amazon. The catalog is infinite, as it always is. But whenever you purchase using that link, we get a small commission here so that we can continue to spread this message that teachers are leaders. So whenever you do that, and I thank you to those of you who are doing it, it means a lot. But whenever you do that, you really, really, really do help us to amplify that message. And in doing so, we equip and we empower teachers to lead their students to success. So I am grateful to those of you who are doing that. And, to those of you who are thinking about it, please consider going ahead and doing that. And I thank you so much for your time. Again, that's marvinbyrd.com. And the tab is support the message. All right, number two, everybody gets refreshments. Yes, everybody gets refreshments. Hot chocolate. Everybody gets refreshments. So we had the other boy who he's been through some stuff. He's been through some stuff, and he was having a hard time believing as well, and so he was in another car. But the conductor asked about, hey, what about that other boy? Did he get refreshments? Because everybody gets refreshments. Everybody gets refreshments. And that is you. That's your job as a leader, to send that message that, well, maybe not everybody gets refreshments, but for you, it's everybody has value. Everybody has value. And there are a number of ways that you can exhibit this and your belief in this throughout your classroom. Everybody has value. We're talking about equity here. We're talking about equity. Everybody has value. This is the heart of a true leader. This is the heart of a true leader, because a leader recognizes that what we talked about before, there's no one size fits all solution. Everybody is different on this journey, and I've got to study them to make sure I give them the appropriate feedback that's going to help them get the most out of this journey. And as the architect of your environment, you're going to have to go over the top in order to send this message. You're going to have to emphasize it daily. You're going to have to model it. It needs to be embedded in your culture, because we're talking about leadership. We're talking about leadership in an equitable way. You as a leader are observing, and then you're also engaging and making sure that all of your students have what they need in order to be successful, whatever it may be. And when it comes to equity, I want to remind you of this. If you need help, please go get help. There are so many resources regarding equity to help you, so that you don't make a mistake and say something, or a student says something and you don't check it, and then that gets to a parent, and then that parent goes all the way up to the superintendent. It's okay. It's okay to say, hey, I don't know, or hey, maybe we should revisit that, because I want to make sure that we put the right thought out there when it comes to that topic. So there's a number of things that you can do in order to make sure that you say what you mean to say, in order to make sure that the students have that they've got the right they have the right view of the picture that you're trying to paint. And I also want to take this time to plug another podcast that I put out. It's called What White Educators Can Do to Sustain the Change. And I went into some details on things that you can do in order to, continue this conversation, continue on this path of equity, and making sure that all of your students feel comfortable in your classroom. So I encourage you to check that out. And then just, again, there's a number of resources out there. So check those out. So yes, everybody gets refreshments. And then the last one, the last takeaway from the Polar Express is, and it kind of ties into number two, but it's your concern is my concern. Your concern is my concern. That that is that's the mindset that you want all of your students to have about their fellow classmates. Your concern is my concern. Your concern is my concern. In the movie, we had the boy, he realizes that his friend, she left her ticket in her seat. And he could have said, "Oh, that's your problem, whatever, whatever." But no, he didn't do that. Her concern was his concern, and so he did his best to try to get her ticket, and unfortunately that didn't quite work out. But you know what? Even when it came time for her to account for where her ticket was and he lost it, he stepped up and said, "Hey, it's not her fault. It's my fault. Take my ticket because your concern is my concern." And that is where you're trying to get to. That's money. That's heaven on earth when you're able to get everyone in your class thinking that way. Because what happens then is you can really give the students the keys and let them go. That's when you really start getting into that excellent category on your evaluation, because the students, they're running it. They're accounting for each other. They're checking in with each other, say, "Hey, did you get that? Because if you didn't get that, here, you can look off of my notes." Or the student said, "Hey, I noticed that you were absent the other day. Do you want to sit down and talk for about 5 minutes, and I can help catch you up?" That's that's what we're talking about. Your concern is my concern. And again, it goes back to culture. As you see, you are the architect of your environment. And so that falls on your shoulders to do everything that you can in order to build that kind of environment in your classroom. And it is doable. It's doable, and it definitely it takes a lot of work, but it is doable. So let's sum those up. So we have same train, different goals. Same train, different goals. The goal is mastery, but there are different goals and points of emphasis for each that are different for each student in order to really make the most of that ultimate destination of mastery, in order to help the students be able to continue to repeat it and have success and grow. And then number two, everybody gets refreshments, which also means that everybody has value. Everybody has value. Go out of your way. Do everything in your power in order to create an equitable environment. Everybody gets refreshments. Everybody gets hot chocolate. And then number three, your concern is my concern. Your concern is my concern. That's the kind of mindset that you want all of your students in your class to have, because that's going to help take things to the next level. That's going to increase all the good stuff, and that's going to eliminate the bad stuff in your classroom environment. So there you have it. I thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Please don't forget marvinbyrd.com, marvinbyrd.com. That's where you can find the classroom leadership blog. I have many posts. They'll take you less than 5 minutes to read, because I know you're very busy. So that's marvinbyrd.com, marvinbyrd.com, classroom leadership blog. And then don't forget, in order to help spread this message that teachers are leaders, don't forget to support the message by using that link whenever you shop at Amazon. So I thank you once again for listening, and Merry Christmas to you all. happy Hanukkah, Festivus, whatever you celebrate. Um, I just happy holidays to each and every one of you, and thank you for being a member of this audience. And until we meet again, please don't forget that teachers are leaders.